Destiny 1 was a game that I very much loved, but it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. While there were many ways it very uniquely outshone D2, I am straight up perplexed by people who say it was a flat out better game all the way across the board. Today I'm looking back at the absolute biggest reasons that Destiny 1 drove me crazy. Reason 1, the vault was laughably, pathetically tiny. If you never played D1 at all, you would be amazed at how unbelievably small the D1 vault was. Again, if you've literally never played and only started with D2, I want you to pause the video right now and guess what the size of the original D1 vault was. Okay, you're back. What'd you guess? 300? 200? Try 60. 60. And by the way, that's split up into 3 categories, meaning you could only put 20 pieces of armor and 20 weapons total into your vault. And the collections tab didn't exist yet, by the way, meaning you couldn't just delete your exotic for extra vault room, then pull an identical copy out whenever you wanted. If you had a new exotic that you wanted to stash away for later, but already had 20 weapons in your vault, well, time to start making some tough decisions there, Junior. Next, why don't we get a really obvious one out of the way? Reason 2, 30 FPS and locked FOV. Good lord, a little while back I made a video where I played 50 games of D1 and wow, was going back a huge mental adjustment. Sure, back then we were all used to it, but if you went back right now, would be like trying to go back to imitation dollar store turkey bacon after finally having eaten real bacon for the first time. And yeah, I do admit, kind of a cheap shot to knock an old game for limiting tech specs, but still, it's one I have to include. Reason 3, you always needed to level up weapons. In D2, outside of crafted weapons, which are a completely different story, weapon drops work like this. Every perk is completely unlocked and you can pop into any activity you want and start using that bad boy at its full potential right away. When you got a weapon in D1, you had to freaking level that thing up if you wanted to unlock any of the perks on it. Take the weapon into PvE or PvP and start using it before you had the privilege of being able to spend a lot of resources and glimmer to unlock the perks on that gun. Eventually, you could power level weapons via pumping it full of Guardian steroids, aka motes of light. But even still, that got expensive quickly, and let me tell you, there was no worse feeling than you spending a bunch of motes to power level a brand new gun, only to learn that it sucked. Maybe you got a gun with a new perk you hadn't used yet, or a perk combo you wanted to try out. You wouldn't know that perk or combo sucked until you finished leveling the weapon, and then you felt like you just wasted your time, resources, and potentially your motes for something that you wound up hating and sharding. And while that can happen in D2 with crafted weapons, at least you have the versatility to completely change the role you don't like into something completely different. But real quick, today's video is brought to you by Manscaped. So let's thank them real quick for supporting my content. Manscaped is trusted by more than 9 million men worldwide for their trimmers and hygiene products, but they're back to changing the grooming game again with a brand new product, the Handyman. Compact face shaver. The Handyman delivers a quick close shave with a unique dual blade system. It features a standard foil shaver as well as a long haired lever blade to knock down up to 3 days worth of growth. It also features skin safe technology designed to help reduce nicks and cuts. And of course, you know the Handyman is waterproof, which helps to make cleanup quick and easy. This bad boy is even airplane friendly. No, I'm not telling you to join the Mile High Shave Club, you dingus, but with a compact size and rechargeable battery, you can take the Handyman with you wherever you go. No more compromising on your grooming routine while traveling. Did someone say battery? No? Well, too bad, I'm talking about it anyway. The Handyman has 60 minutes of runtime on a single charge, so you can even make your pet Sasquatch look like a dapper gentleman. Right now, you can go to manscaped.com/falloutplays and get 20% off your purchase of the Handyman. Don't wait, up your grooming game with the Handyman with 20% off at manscaped.com/falloutplays. All right, back to reasons why D1 drove me crazy. Reason 4, lucky bullets and final round. Back in the day, there were a bunch of highly obnoxious ways to take advantage of free extra damage, which could turn PvP into a goddamned nightmare. One of those methods was final round, where the final bullet in your mag would get a big beefy damage buff. It was soon discovered that if you had the right kind of sniper, you could simply spawn in, intentionally fire off rounds until you got to the final bullet in your mag, and then you could kill any guardian in PvP in one shot anywhere on their body. Their arm, their leg, their foot, insta one-shot kill. Basically all the power of standing in a Radiant Warlock well without the restriction of needing to stay in one area. Many a round of PvP started off with immediate groaning as you heard the enemy team bleeding out their sniper mags before even seeing anybody. Thankfully, Bungie did go on to change Final Round to be extra damage on headshots only. But veterans still remember the original Final Round meta as being one of the more memorable PvP metas for the worse. And man, oh man, the lucky bullets. Luck in the Chamber was a different perk that made it so that one random bullet in your mag did way more damage. And not only that, there were magazine perks back in D1 which could intentionally lower your mag count overall. So you had players with these unique hand cannon rolls where they would intentionally bleed the mag a little bit, and if the magic bullet didn't come out, they'd be all set. By simple process of elimination, they knew the magic bullet had to be in the next 3 or so shots, and that would make locking up the hand cannon kill way easier. I mean, hell, if you were lucky enough, you could literally get Hawkmoon to straight up one-tap kill an enemy Guardian via pure bullet RNG. And yeah, while Hawkmoon can one-tap in D2, it's based on a system of earning that one-tap through being accurate, not just a freaking dice roll. That shit was obscene. And speaking of Hawkmoon, by the way, reason number 5, PlayStation exclusivity. Let me tell you, if you were an Xbox player back in D1, oh, the resentment you had for those who played on PlayStation and got access to so many fun things first. I know, I just complained about OG Hawkmoon a minute ago, but look, there were some degenerates out there who already knew they weren't getting into heaven and wanted to know what it felt like to one-tap someone at least one time. And I'm not kidding when I tell you that Hawkmoon was one of the most iconic, awesome meta weapons in all of D1, and holy crap, hearing the PlayStation folk go on and on about how great it was just painful for people on the other side of the fence. Dado and other content creators made hand cannon tier lists and frequently would gush about the power and awesome factor of Hawkmoon. By the time Hawkmoon eventually made it over to Xbox, so much time had gone by, the gun had been completely watered down and nerfed. So the X-boys never got to know the satisfaction of getting an endgame message from a 12-year-old telling you to kill yourself. There was other stuff too, of course. Monte Carlo, Zen Meteor, Jade Rabbit, certain PvP maps, it goes on and on. The situation felt even worse, by the way, because most Xbox D1 players I know were really excited to pick up the game because they were already fans of Bungie-made games because of what else? Halo. It was just a big mess and caused a lot of weird, bad blood in the community. Reason number 6, resource farming. Granted, things did improve over the course of D1's life, but the original resource grind in D1 was borderline unbearable. The best method of farming was to fly down to any planet or location and then straight up run around the entire area in a very big circle, collecting individual resources one at a time. People even came up with optimal farming paths and then spent literally hours just manually going around in a big circle on foot. Quality gameplay loop right there, boys. And reason 7, D1 veteran PvP players, I'm sorry for what I'm about to show you, as I know your brain has probably worked very hard to shove this out of your memory, but Skorries, the D1 artifact that caused more stress and anxiety than every terrible holiday dinner you've ever had with your extended family put together. If you're lucky enough to not know, I'll fill you in. The memory of Skorri was a passive artifact which made it so that when your super was fully charged, nearby allies' super would charge faster too. And if you're thinking, wow, that sounds like it would be really annoying to fight in trials, you are correct. The end result was a ton of extremely passive gameplay and constant group camping in 3v3, and the vast majority of D1 players are all happy that Skorri is dead. Reason 8, for some reason you always had to go to orbit. Might be kinda hard to grasp the frustration of this one, but back in D1, if you wanted to jump between any activity at all, no matter what you were doing, you first had to go to orbit. No whipping out your ghost in the middle of a location or activity and saying, well, let's just go to the tower from here. Let's just do this. Let's load up that. Nope, gotta go to orbit each and every time before doing anything. Now, I know that sounds very first world problem, and it kinda is, but when we learned we didn't have to do that anymore in D2, it was probably the same reaction as your grandparents learning that we had successfully landed on the moon for the first time. Ask True Vanguard about it, he was probably around. Reason number 9, and maybe the one on my list that drove me the most crazy, no mantling. Those of you who didn't play D1 have no idea how frequently our dumbasses straight up plummeted to our death after missing a jump by inches. Don't get me wrong, D2 has plenty of unfixed problems that need to be fixed, but thank God almighty Bungie had the human decency to finally give us mantling or clambering or whatever the hell you want to call it. Are you the person in your raid group who complains about how much you hate jumping puzzles? Take that anxiety you feel right now when doing a jumping puzzle and dial that up to 11 in D1. And again, the nightmare of no mantling combined with that tiny ass FOV. If you're ever stuck indoors on a rainy night and you want to get destroyed, fire up D1 and do a little drinking game. Every time you miss a jump, take a shot. Except don't actually do that because you will be dead in 3 minutes. Reason 10, Warlock self-res. Look, I was a diehard Warlock main in D1. Wait a minute, hold on. Opportunity to activate. What the f***? Played him all the time. And even I have to admit that the Warlock self-res super was painfully broken. Like literally, actually, there were raid encounters that you could straight up cheese through the power of being able to bring yourself back to life. And in trials, man, how annoying it was knowing that when you downed a solar warlock in the late game, someone had to go and babysit the body. And sure, if you had the right loadout, you could just quickscope dome them right back into the ground, but having to assign a teammate to sit there and watch the bod while you go have fun and kill the final guy, that ain't fun. You're making them the designated driver of trials. While every D1 Warlock has fun memories that involve self-res, I think most of us agree that it's probably way better off not being in D2. Reason 11, sprint cooldown. If you haven't heard much about D1, you might be amazed to learn that there was a sprint cooldown mechanic built into the game. After sprinting for a few seconds, if you stopped to do anything, look around, slide, ADS, whatever, you'd have to literally wait until your hidden sprint cooldown mechanic allowed you to start running again. That was a thing in both PvE and PvP, by the way. As you can imagine, players hated it, and eventually Bungie did give us an artifact, the memory of Jolder, that removed sprint cooldown if you had it equipped. And while that at least gave us a way to deal with the problem, I mean, god damn, it should have just been straight up fixed to begin with, not been taken care of via a weird band-aid solution. Reason 12, the story, or maybe the lack of story is more accurate.
I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain.
And let's quickly address the elephant in the room. Destiny 2's story is far from perfect. While there have been noticeable high points like the Witch Queen campaign and interesting character arcs, we're now in a place where the story can feel too drawn out and time-gated week after week following a new season. However, in D1, there was practically no story in the game to speak of. Don't misunderstand, there was lore and information surrounding D1, but it was barely presented in-game to the player at all, and when it was never anything but incoherent and vague. The most detail we ever got were through the Grimoire cards, which were tiny nuggets of info, literally hidden throughout the game. When you found the Grimoire, you couldn't even read the lore entries in the game. You had to go over and read them on Bungie.net. Again, D2 is definitely not a masterpiece of straightforward storytelling, but if you went back in time and asked the average active D1 player to stand up in front of the class and explain the narrative of the game, it would, no joke, sound like a rambling 5-year-old who you just asked to tell you what they did that day. There's plenty more, and if you're a D1 vet, let me know if anything drove you crazy that people conveniently forget about when putting on those rose-tinted glasses. Let me know down in the comment section. Like today's video if it gave you a brief, fun walk down memory lane. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on stream.